Hi friends, it's Allison here sharing some scrapbook inspiration for Scrapbook Nerd. Today I am playing with Heidi Swap storyline chapters. There are a couple die cuts that I created with my Cricut, but very few this time. This layout is focusing mainly on the ephemera, cardstock or pattern paper, and stickers from the paper pad. So let's get started. Right now I'm just putting together a couple of feathers that I cut with my Cricut. I thought that they would work well with the theme of today's layout. It's about an acro group that we had the privilege of seeing here in our town. They are a Montreal-based gymnast group that teaches people about African culture through music and acro. And because they were wearing traditional tribe costumes, I thought the feathers would work really well to highlight that in my layout. So I'm just trimming down the Heidi Swap pattern paper so they fit onto a white cardstock base. I have 3 photos there that I printed in black and white. And I'm just playing around with where I'm going to put everything. I decided that I wanted to mat the photos on some white cardstock to frame it out a little bit. I thought that it would add just a little bit more like a finishing touch to the pictures so they don't kind of blend into the background. So I'm just trimming a small border around those right now, using up some scrap cardstock, which is always nice. And then once that's done, I'll layer them back onto the layout kind of where I had them to begin with. So they're hanging, not hanging, but they are placed flush to the left-hand side of the layout. So there's enough room to add the giant scallop circle. My plan originally with that scallop circle was to add the title inside it on a curve. I really like the idea of doing that, but I decided to use Pink Fresh Studio Alphas to create the layout or to create the title rather than cutting it with my Cricut. And it didn't work out. So the design that I had in my mind kind of got modified just a little bit. You'll see that here in a moment. Actually, I'm working on the title right now with those Pink Fresh Alphas. I wanted to layer them at first. The original plan was to create the title around the outside of the circle, following the curve of the circle to create the curve. But the alphas were way too big and I just didn't have enough space. So the next idea was to layer them inside the circle. But once again, the alphas were still too big because I don't have the lowercase alphas, the ones that I needed to create my title from the Pink Fresh Alphas. So the next best thing was to put the title above the circle and just let the feathers shine in the scallop circle, which the scallop circle ends up being way too big in the end. But it is what it is. So we're just carrying on. I'm adding the feathers right now to the circle, and I'm going to go back and continue working on the title. The feathers were cut from a Heidi Swap cardstock, except for the white cardstock and the green. I had the green in my own stash, and I thought it coordinated really well with the pattern papers. So I used that to create the feathers. And there's a cute little bow on top of it too. So I'm just kind of playing around with the title right now. I was still in the mindset that I wanted to do it on a curve, but I wasn't happy with how it looked. So here I'm just going to place it above the scallop circle. I'm going to split the title into 2 just to make it fit in that little space. The troupe that we listened to, or that we watched, was called Kalabonte Cirque. I didn't have all the alphas to create the word Cirque like I wanted to, so I actually stamped that and it becomes sort of a subtitle in my title. Later on you'll see that I'm going to add some embellishing to the space beside the title where I split it because it just looked kind of plain and it needed some dressing up. But now that I have the title adhered, I'm going to add this little frame that I cut with my Cricut as well. It's going to be mounted with some foam squares just to add some dimension and height to the layout. I realized at this point too, this layout is a hot mess, by the way. I was kind of scattered trying to put this one together. The little frame that I'm working with right now, I had wanted it to be where the title is and then forgot, and rather than taking the title up yet again to make space for this frame, I'm just working with it and putting it over another photo. So it ends up in the middle photo, and I'm just going to create a little cluster over the top of the frame, which is super cute. I love scallops. I think they're such an easy way to add interest and texture to a layout without going overly crazy and cutting something that's really intricate and has the potential to tear and not really work out the way that you want it to. Scallops are classic, kind of like the LBD little black dress. It's the little black dress on my layout. So yeah, I'm just putting together a little embellishment cluster at the top there using a mixture of stickers and the ephemera. I ended up using a lot of flowers on this layout. I hadn't originally intended to do that, but it just worked out that way. And I really like the finished product. I like how it just rounds out the layout and completes it. So I'm just continuing to play around with stickers and different things that I want added to the embellishment clusters. There ends up being 4 embellishment clusters around this layout in the spot that I'm adding items to right now, in the bottom left-hand corner, and then of course where the feathers are, and then in that little empty space beside the title. I don't think I do the one beside the title until I felt like the layout was pretty well done. And then I got to looking at it and I was like, no, it just feels kind of bare and it needs a little something more. So I come back in, I do record it and add just a few more embellishments to that little space there and then call it complete. So I'm just right now adding some of the ephemera to the feathers. I had the Stay Curious vellum piece there for a little while and then decided I didn't like that, so pulled it off, of course after I had glued it with my Tombow Mono, and replaced it with the Loving This sticker tab. I placed that on some extra white cardstock that I had lying around and turned it more into an ephemera piece rather than... Sorry, I got interrupted there by my daughter. I'm back now. So I turned that little piece in the scallop circle into an ephemera embellishment rather than a sticker because it was hanging off of a piece that had foam adhesive, so it was already higher. I needed it to match the same height as what was already there, so I put it on paper and then added foam squares to the one end of it so that everything was flush and flat. While I was discussing that, I was working on the embellishment cluster in the bottom left-hand corner of my layout. Once I got that figured out, I moved on to just adding a few more nicks and knacks and other pieces around the layout to finish it off. I'm really happy with the end result of this layout. It didn't go at all the way that I planned. But it turned out really well. I'm quite happy with the end result. I do have some close-ups at the end of this video, so if you hung out with me until the very end of the layout, you will be able to check those out if you so choose to. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you hanging out. I will include the shop link to Scrapbook Nerd in the description box down below, so you can go check out the shop and maybe pick up some Heidi Swap goodies for yourself. So right now I am just working on adding my journaling. I added some lines in pencil, and I will go over that with my journaling pen once I've got the journaling added. And then once that's done, I'm going to pull out a stamp set from my stash and add the Cirque portion of my title, the subtitle if you like, beneath the Kalabonte. I'm using some ink from my stash, and then of course, like I said, the stamp set from my stash as well. And once that's done, I'm going to add the embellishing above the title like I had mentioned earlier. I'm just going to pull some more ephemera and stickers from the paper pad and add more flowers basically. But just build that up in that little corner there, and with that I will consider this layout 100% complete. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you coming to hang out with me for a little bit, and I will be back again soon with some more creative inspiration for Scrapbook Nerd, so I hope you join me again when I am back. I will see you guys again very, very soon. Once again, don't forget there are some still shots and close-ups at the end of this video, and I will include the link to the Scrapbook Nerd shop down below in the description box so you can pick up your own scrapbooking goodies. Talk to you guys again soon. Take care. Bye, guys.